Welcome everybody to our webinar this evening, introducing the GRAFT Papua New Guinea Challenge with a focus on discussing decentralized energy solutions to tackle the post-harvest challenges in PNG's cocoa sector. My name is Justin Ahmed. I'm a director of Beanstalk in Australia, and very much very thankful for you to be able to spend your time wherever you are in the world on this topic this morning, afternoon, or evening. We're going to get right into it as people start filtering in. But we're going to cover a few things today in the 90-minute panel that we have available to us. But our first going to hear a set of opening remarks from the Alliance for Rural Electrification, the co-host of this webinar and its Director of Policy and Business Development, Jens Jäger, in Brussels. We're going to hear a bit more about some context on some of the challenges in the PNG's cocoa sector and some of the solutions and intentions for that from the CEO and co-founder of PNG Agriculture Company, Brad Jackson. You're going to hear a bit from me about the GRAFT program and GRAFT Challenge Papua New Guinea. You're going to get to hear from a wonderful panel of innovators, Cody, Ian, and Dr. Billington Ortiz, of course, from Village Industrial Power, Rise Energy, and Wuppertal Institute for Climate, Energy, and Climate, Environment, and Energy. And we're going to close with a bit of panel discussion, talking more about the opportunity to solve and tackle some of the challenges in Papua New Guinea and more broadly decentralized rural energy solution challenges around the world. So enough from me for now. I will hand it over to Jens.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Justin. And we are also delighted to partner in this webinar. The topic is very pertinent and relevant and interesting for the Alliance. As you'll see in the next slide, the Alliance for Rural Education, we're a global business association, especially focusing on decentralized renewable energy. And we focus on catalyzing private sector driven markets for sustainable electricity services. And with that, also create jobs and power equitable green economies. So in most countries of the world, of course, agriculture is still the main livelihood and the main huge part of the economy, hence why the topic of today is extremely relevant. We have just over 200 members worldwide. We are so making us the largest association in the space. We're also the oldest one, being founded in 2006. And we have members spanning across 55 countries in all over the world. We're mainly active in Sub-Saharan Africa, Asia Pacific, and Latin America. So if we move to the next slide, I think we will just see our impact targets. So we are striving to enable the private sector, as mentioned before, to deliver millions of new connections, 500 million or more to be precise. By 2030, we're also striving to, with that, create green jobs and avoid more than 1 billion tons of CO2 equivalent emissions. So quite an ambitious target, if I may say so. But yeah, if you're not ambitious, then we believe you don't get anywhere. So if we look at the next slide, you can just see a few of the names of members. They range from large corporates such as an NG or Schneider Electric to SMEs from emerging countries, especially Africa and Asia. Moving on to the next slide. So what are some of the challenges we see in last mile education? Well, first of all, extending the main grid to remote households and agricultural industries, for example, pose challenges because it's expensive and it's difficult. Especially, let's say, the unit cost of serving a sparsely populated area can be extremely high if you do it with grid electrification. So you can imagine if you want to draw high voltage cable lines from the capital to a remote part of equivalent of doing that in Australia, for example. It's very, very expensive per new person electrified. And so, that's one challenge. The other is terrain. So you have areas that are in mountains, very sparsely populated, or in islands, making sites inaccessible or hard to reach. And then the third related challenge is on poverty in those communities. So typically the most remote communities are also the poorest ones, meaning that the ability to pay for electricity is often limited. All of that universal access that we are promoting needs more than $25 billion per year. So there's also a money part of it that is challenging, of course. We need to increase investments in this sector threefold if we're to reach the targets. Luckily, though, there are solutions for these issues. So if we move to the next slide, just wanted to show you a few graphs here. So IEA, the International Energy Agency, estimates, because of the reasons I mentioned on the last slide, that decentralized renewables will offer the solution for the majority of new connections by 2030, 55% to be precise. And what are decentralized renewables? Well, it can be mini grids, it can be solar home systems or other standalone solutions such as small wind, small hydro. So there's a continuum where at some point of the scale, as you move further away from the capital and households and industries are more scattered, in a part of that space, you have mini grids where you serve communities and smaller cities that are far from the grid. And if you move to very, very remote areas, then they're better served with standalone systems, here represented by solar home systems and Pico PV. So that is what the graph on the left represents. The graph on the right, so in terms of agricultural and industrial productivity in remote areas, essentially what we are seeing is that the newer generation of clean energy mini grids, they can play a larger and larger role in electrification of industries. Why? It's because they're not just serving traditional electricity as a traditional electricity company, but they're also delivering and distributing agricultural goods, for example. They're partnering with industry companies in other sectors to help their value chains. So there's let's say a synergy effect of working together, electricity and agriculture hand in hand, and co-investing in projects, for example. That is what the graph represents. More details can be found in the source there below. I'm sure we'll share the slides afterwards. So there's a hyperlink there to the Clean Energy Mini Grid Policy Development Guide that we developed with AFDB and UNIDO a few years back, and that's where you'll find that graph and more explanations on it. Moving to the last slide, I think, so there are a few sources here that I would recommend to read, which has more information about crowding in private capital in such projects and the synergies with the Agri Sector. We just launched a publication on how our members dealt with the COVID pandemic. We also have another knowledge product specifically on the Agri DRE Nexus with case studies from across the world. And then a third publication has very detailed information about case studies in South and Southeast Asia. So with that, I think that sets a little bit of context for the discussion today. Very happy to be partnering on the event and look forward to the presentations from the innovators. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jens. It's great to learn more about the Alliance for Rural Electrification and what you're working on, especially on the back of what I know was a big conference in Renewables Mozambique over the last couple of days. So thankful we could have you in person to present. And personally very much recommend these resources, as that's how I think we learned a little bit more about your work in the first place, as well as VIPs, Rise and Wuppertal's, who we'll hear more from soon. So with that, I will hand over. And I think this is a bit of contact information on your side. If anybody wants to be able to be in contact with the Secretariat at ARE. And with that, we'll hand over to one of the industry partners for the GRAFT Challenge Papua New Guinea program, and someone who's been deeply involved with the PNG cocoa sector for many years, Brad Jackson, CEO and co-founder of PNG Agriculture Company. Brad, over to you.
Thanks, Justin, and thank you very much for the opportunity to provide some context from my point of view. If you just move to the first slide, thanks, Justin. Just a little bit about PNG Agriculture Company. It was actually founded through the Cocoa Board of Papua New Guinea, who are the regulators in the country. I was asked to come up from Australia, where I live, to look at ways that we may be able to increase farmer incomes and basically improve the exports of cocoa from PNG. And after a fair bit of time, and discussions with farmers all around the place, we established a farmer-owned company called PNG Agriculture Company. It currently has over 2,000 shareholders, mainly between East New Britain and the CPIC region. And its whole mission, if you like, is to really increase their participation in the value chain. So basically get deeper into the value chain. The benefit from a chocolate bar to a farmer is between about 5 to 7%, and so we're looking at ways that we might be able to improve the value that farmers can get from the cocoa value chain. I guess the points of difference that I've got there, it's 100% owned by farmers, so we're really looking to make sure farmers can benefit from what we're trying to do. Most of the farming in Papua New Guinea has been arranged through cooperative societies, which is needed. I mean, you need the aggregation, but the cooperative societies themselves tend to have management difficulties, and so by taking this approach, we're kind of having a cooperative of cooperatives, if you like, where we're trying to overlay more commercial management and business systems, and basically elevate farmers from their subsistence gardens to becoming small business owners. Extension services in the country have been problematic for a long time. In other words, there's a lot of farmers and not a lot of resources to get to farmers. So we looked at some innovations around the way we deliver extension services, including the integration of technology, so that when farmers sell their cocoa, they can QR code and have full traceability. Our production systems, which we'll come to, women and youth, we have them playing a key role in trying to transition mindsets, and we've partnered up with financial institutions, and we've even just set up a chocolate company in Australia, and we're basically aiming to really not just build a cocoa company, but build economic development throughout the 7,000 plus wards in the country over time by keeping more money in the communities and diversifying the SME activity in those communities to try and build opportunities. So that's a little bit about the company, PNG Agriculture Company. If we go to the next slide and just look at the context of the cocoa industry, just very broadly, the industry is exported around the 40,000 tonne mark for a long time now. It hasn't really gone anywhere. Productivity hasn't increased, and this is despite the many millions of dollars that have been invested into programs to try and improve production yield at the farm level. It's it's been a large investment, yet there has not been a lot of change. And so, from our view, the farmers, well, there's no doubt, respond to price. And we see that when prices increase, production increases, but it's very difficult to, at the way things are at the moment, it's very difficult to increase price because the cocoa is poorly processed and only ever gets to the bulk markets, which is dictated by basically what happens in West Africa, given that they have 70+% of market share. So PNG does have a very good quality cocoa, a good flavour profiles, and it is well recognised globally. However, it's as I said, it's processed inconsistently, and a lot of that comes down to this drying process. And so that's what we really need to fix. The drying, there's like, at a guess, 15,000 plus small dryers spread around the countryside, and most of them use kiln pipes and heat firewood to try and get the heat into the beans to dry them properly. And this is because there's no electricity in most places, and there's no other technology around, and that's all basically we have. But it's really constraining the opportunity for us to get to higher valued markets and leverage the fine flavour that the country has. And so as a result of all of that, we have a stagnant growth within the industry. There's other factors like difficulty for farmers to get access to working capital. There's been no investment in developing markets anyway, from the PNG Cocoa Board's point of view. And so farmers, the prices rather have stayed low, and the incentives for farmers aren't really there. And so the Cocoa Board is very keen to look at doing what we can to increase the value we get for the cocoa that we have, and to do that, we need better post-harvest processing. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see that little picture is that's the new innovation in the country. That was developed 10 plus years ago, I guess. It's a solar combination dryer developed in partnership with the Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research. It does a pretty good job, but it's very expensive for what it can produce in terms of an output over a week, and it still requires the burning of wood to generate heat. And where there's fire, there's smoke. Even if they manage the smoke, there's perception in the marketplace about the way it's done, and we can't scale it. It's too expensive. No one can afford it. It costs too much to produce 1 tonne over a long period of time. So there is a significant opportunity behind the question mark. What can we do to come up with a system that we can centrally process cocoa? The Cocoa Board has agreed that we should be taking a more group-based approach so that we have less dryers and better opportunity to control quality. So what can we come up with, recognising that there is no electricity in most places, to come up with a system that generates the heat we need to dry cocoa in a reasonable period of time, and that we can verify the processes that we do along the way, so that when we're selling our cocoa to a market, we can actually tell them what we've done and what's inside the container before they get it. And so there's a whole series of things that we could be doing to fix up the post-harvest processing and get our good cocoa into good markets and have those good prices passed back to farmers. And once we do that, we will see lives change, because incomes will increase. Farmers will get much more motivated to look after their crops much better, because the price is the incentive. Once they see the price is there, it will become a lot easier to do extension and yield improvement. And then we can look at diversification in their farms to mitigate the risk of just having one commodity, and integrate financial inclusion and all the things necessary to build an enabling environment for farmers to become much more successful within as farmers and as entrepreneurs. So that's a bit of context for what it is we're trying to do, and I'm very, very grateful to the GRAFT Challenge and the people behind the GRAFT Challenge for making this happen. We've been trying for quite some time to do this, and we haven't had a lot of resources. The final slide is what we want to try and do. We want good quality beans. We want the downstream process into butter and powder and into our own chocolate products, and really pass the extra value we achieve from this back to the farmers. So yeah, thanks very much for the opportunity to have a talk, and we look forward to really seeing what innovations come out through the GRAFT Challenge. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Brad, for sharing quite a bit more, not just about many of the challenges and the general state of development and of the PNG cocoa sector, but also talking a bit about PNG Agriculture Company's inception and systemic approach to shifting market systems. And that's really, I think, what this program and this discussion is about. Is not about a single solution opportunity, but what are the various innovations, opportunities, and systems changes that are hopefully needed and will contribute to market development. I'm gonna just take a bit of time to speak here for the next 10 minutes or so and share a little bit more about the GRAFT Challenge program and what we're actually out to do over the next several months. Before we go into that, just to introduce Beanstalk. I'm a director of Beanstalk based in Melbourne, and we're an innovation agency dedicated to the agri-food sector across the Indo-Pacific. And we sit at kind of the center of the innovation ecosystem in a few ways, sometimes working with agribusinesses to better engage and scale up technological efforts within their own enterprises. Sometimes working with new ventures and innovators themselves to raise capital, move to new markets, and improve their kind of product market fit. Sometimes supporting actually investors from a perspective of increasing deal flow and opportunity and market assessment. And many times, like this with the GRAFT Challenge program, working with industries, governments, development agencies to help them engage the global ag tech ecosystem, and to help upgrade the agricultural innovation capacity within their markets. So that's a bit of context about us. And one of our programs that has been running for a while has been the GRAFT Challenge program. And the GRAFT Challenge program, it's a land and launch program focused on scaling ag tech solutions to solve pressing challenges in smallholder value chains. And we see this through a dual lens. Firstly, helping and supporting agribusinesses to take new approaches to look and source solutions from outside their own backyard, and to build long-term commercial relationships with innovation partners. And secondly, to work with innovators to actually, to identify opportunities for their solutions, to enter new markets with confidence and partnerships, and to build the foundations for longer-term commercial relationships and success in new spaces. So that's the GRAFT Challenge program. Just a call out for those innovators that may, as you're learning from the discussion here today, and may consider applying for the program, why you should do that. Firstly, we'll be focused on helping you to fast-track trials and commercial partnerships. As Brad spoke about today, we're really keen to start bringing through approaches that we can trial. And the end goal, as we'll talk about a bit more later, is by the second quarter of next year to actually have innovators in market understanding what it will take to trial their solutions locally, and hopefully, as detailed here, securing some potential funding and support to scale that. Second, through our network and partners in the program itself, accessing some curated, fit-for-purpose market intelligence and advisory services to strengthen your service offering in the context of the local market. Thirdly, to build strategic relationships with vetted service providers, whether they be consultants, team members, partners, technicians on the ground. Fourthly, to actually secure potential follow-on opportunity for funding and support to scale. So pending successful trials, having an opportunity to help scale that solution across the supply chain and into new markets. And lastly, but not leastly, to strengthen the visibility and the reputation of your own innovative solution within commercial agribusiness in the cocoa space in Papua New Guinea and elsewhere. And just a bit on our foundations and what we've been doing since. We started this program with support from Global Victoria and UPL in India and Australia back in 2019, initiating a bilateral program whereby we were supporting Indian startups to better understand and establish technology trials in the Australian ecosystem, focused on climate smart solutions for grain production, and supporting Australian solution providers to actually secure potential partnerships in India focused on especially optimized spray harvest rigs to reduce pesticide loads in citrus production in Haryana. And this was a kind of a birth of an opportunity that we saw had real commercial need to bring a challenge-focused approach to cross-border growth and relationship building. In Vietnam, with the support of Oz for Innovation, the Ministry of Science and Technology, and in partnership with 25 different agribusinesses from 3 different industries, shrimp production, piggery production, and tropical horticulture, especially mangoes. We focused on attracting 9 solution providers from 7 different countries to help them establish teams, solutions, and commercial trials on the ground. And now we're working with the PNG Oz partnership and market development facility, development program dedicated to Papua New Guinea and 7 other markets, supporting market systems transformation around the region, are in partnership with 3 industry partners: PNG Agriculture Company, Paradise Foods Limited, who's a large food conglomerate and the only actually, for now, chocolate producer in Papua New Guinea, and Outspan PNG, who's a subsidiary of Olam Food Ingredients based in PNG, are deploying the GRAFT Challenge Papua New Guinea, which is focused on the issue, which is focused on cocoa sector issues, and in particular, as Brad had called out, the issue of smoke taint, and more generally post-harvest quality solutions. So really looking forward to a stronger and more robust discussion on this. I think just to call out one more time, as Brad had spoken about, cocoa production in Papua New Guinea is only 1% to 2% of the global market, but it's recognized as firstly the high strong flavor profile and fine flavor cocoa across the world, and it supports the livelihoods of a couple of 100,000 smallholder producing families across Papua New Guinea, and is a critical crop in many different regions and supporting many different production systems. And so we're really interested to bring more attention to the challenges the industry is facing and supporting innovation to be more purpose-fit in solving for it. Just a quick snapshot of some of our impact to date through the GRAFT Challenge program and in those programs that highlighted so far. We've been fortunate enough to work with and support over 50 different industry partners, and have taken the consequent approach, taking a more specific industry approach to this challenge, to be working more intensively with a smaller number of them now. The alumni of our cohorts, the 14 of them that have been brought through our pipeline supported, have raised over $110 million since entering and going through our program, much of that focused on deploying in the markets that they've been growing into. We've been able to enable and facilitate 8 different technology trials. Actually, I think that's more now. 5 of the 9 different companies that we had supported to enter Vietnam at the time have initiated technology commercial trials or are now commercially selling their services in Vietnam. We've been able to bring a lot of attention to both challenges and innovators that we're working with, generating several million views of our program-driven media. And we're really proud to see that we're hopefully supporting sustainable growth in 4 global markets now, between India, Australia, Vietnam, and Papua New Guinea. And on the right-hand side, just a few of the innovators that we've been fortunate enough to work with and support over the years. On the top, Regrow, formerly when we were working with them, Fluorosat, an agronomic analytics provider who's since been deploying their solutions with Microsoft all over the world, focused on carbon and regenerative agriculture. When we were working with them, we were, as I think I mentioned, looking for a solution provider to support optimized spray rigs in citrus and quinoa fruit in Haryana. And spent a lot of time to conduct due diligence on a challenge and an opportunity to help deploy the solution in Haryana. Jalatech, they're an Indonesian provider of water quality monitoring IoT solutions. We were looking for a robust sensor-enabled company that could help us to solve critical water quality solutions across the Mekong Delta and with mid-scale producers in Vietnam. We worked together with Jalatech to help hire local staff, to help translate their software, to identify commercial partners, and to help facilitate a trial between them and the Cà Mau government, the provincial government of Vietnam, as well as the Vietnam Sustainable Shrimp Association, and that's since been scaled to 3 different markets, and they've grown their team since. And AgNext is an Indian provider of end-to-end quality management solution, really focused on AI-driven spectroscopy, which helps them to identify quality issues and potential premium opportunities far more efficiently and further up the chain than previously. We worked with them to adapt their solution to Vietnam horticulture, as well as pepper and other spice supply chains. And since they've been working with Taiwan, Vietnam, to actually deploy their solutions in the tapioca space. So just a bit of context and hopefully tangibility to what our GRAFT program does. So to give you a sense of where we've been and where we are in this program, we overinvest early in defining the challenge. We started with an broad understanding of that we're looking at smoke taint and post-harvest solutions, but really focus on learning and discussing with Brad, his team, and other industry partners, spending time on ground to better understand the value chain and what's been deployed before. And through that, we've come to a few critical challenge statements and a good idea of what we're looking for in a solution, which I'll talk a little bit more about later, and hopefully you can learn more on our website and through other follow-up discussions as well. We are just kicking off our campaign for solutions, as this showcases in some part about promoting. Over the next couple of months, we're going to be sharing more about the challenges that we're focusing on, conducting due diligence, and eventually selecting some the innovators who will progress to the next phase of the program alongside our industry partners. And that's from February to May 2023, we'll actually be focused on implementation and scale. We'll help to first prepare the innovators that we're working with to help them better understand the local market context and build some meaningful industry connections. We will help on both sides to help design what support the design of meaningful trials and actually talk about what success looks like on both sides. And we'll facilitate an on-site visit that will be really focused on laying the groundwork for trials and hopefully preparing the foundations for follow-on support and scale. And as I mentioned, the focus has really been on not taking a single silver bullet approach to the challenge and understanding some critical areas where there's opportunity to make tangible impact. So 3 challenges that we have focused our solution on and are looking for solution providers today, each with an industry partner who is kind of our primary sponsor of that effort. First is improving the viability of wood fire alternative heat generation, power community scale dryers. That's a lot of what we're going to talk about today, is about actually rural energy solutions that can power alternatives do that in a sustainable and most importantly, viable manner. The second is reducing the cost of repair and maintenance for kiln and flue pipes in conventional small scale cocoa. We do realize that especially in the immediate term, that many of the dryers, especially that might have been recently commissioned, will take time to be converted over to different combo or otherwise renewable dryers, and hopefully an opportunity to reduce smoke that is coming out of existing pipes through more efficient repair. And third is about preserving cocoa quality by reducing wet beans exposure to indirect smoke. We understand that smoke taint and contamination does not come just from the dryer itself. It comes from smoke that filters into the dryer, or when wet beans are being stored, and when we're seeing coming from household wood fire smoke, whether that's in the kitchen or for burning of rubbish or the like, and looking for cost-effective solutions that can be deployed and delivered in rural areas is something that we're really interested in. So that's a bit about the GRAFT program. Looking forward to fielding questions that you have later on, and really encourage you to check out our website, graftchallenge.com, and specifically our PNG program, graftchallenge.com/Papua New Guinea, and hope that you stay with us to learn more about some of the innovative solutions that are centered really particularly on the first challenge of improving the viability of wood fire alternative. And while we are really excited to have the 3 innovators that we have speaking with us today, Cody from Village Industrial Power, Ian from Rise Energy, and Willington from Wuppertal Institute, who are all kind of tackling this challenge in slightly different ways and contexts today, and really look forward to some of the different thinking that they're going to provide. So with that, I think each of our presenters is going to present for about 8 or 9 minutes, and feel free to pose questions to them, or that you'd like me to pose to them through the Q&A. I'm sure they'll be sticking around to answer those questions throughout. So why don't I hand it over to you, Cody, first, just to share a little bit more about Village Industrial Power. And thanks again for Cody's in New Hampshire. Thanks again for waking up early for this effort.
Of course. Can you let me share screen and then I'll get started? So my name is Cody Plant, and I'll be presenting today on behalf of Village Industrial Power. And I'll be going over our solution, which is a biomass-driven combined heat and power plant for community scale crop dryers. But first, a little bit about the challenge we're addressing. Today, our solution will focus on the challenge of improving the viability of wood fire alternative heat generation to power community scale dryers, as Justin has alluded to. An important part we see to this challenge is that sun and solar dryers are weather dependent and increase the risk of post-harvest loss. Reliance on wood fire dryers is high, but it's causing smoke taint, as Justin has also mentioned. So as most of the currently available solutions, this is going to reduce the market price. And then the lack of reliable energy access limits the suitability of grid-tied solutions. So we would like to jump into the first element of the VIP solution. This is our fuel flexible biomass combined heat and power plant. This is grid independent or off-grid generator, and it can create up to 6 kilowatts of continuous electrical energy and 60 kilograms of low pressure steam per hour, or the equivalent of this is 40 kilowatts of thermal energy. This model generator we call the VIP 1040. It utilizes a very simple design and can be run by one operator. Our experience with this product in Kenya taught us that local technicians can be trained to make repairs to the system in the field. This is the second element to the VIP solution. The VIP 1040 supplies energy to add-on productive use appliances. We're presenting the speedy dryer solutions today. First, on the left, we've pictured the bin dryer. This photo was taken as part of a pilot in Kenya for grain drying. The capacity of this dryer depends greatly upon the moisture content and characteristics of whatever crop is going into it. So we can't make any definitive claims for cocoa beans yet without trialing. But to give a sense of scale, our experience in Kenya with grain, we average 1 metric ton of daily processing capacity with a approximately 4-hour operating cycle. A single VIP 1040 can power 2 of the bins pictured here. On the right is our cabinet style fruit and vegetable dryer. This was very popular in Kenya, and these units are drying mangoes at this very moment. Each cabinet dryer can process up to 250 kilograms of fresh fruit or vegetable in a 4-hour drying cycle. Now again, each VIP 1040 can power 2 of these cabinet dryers, giving this a 1 ton fresh food per day processing capacity. Here we've pictured a simplified CAD drawing showing the pairing of the biomass generator with one of the speedy dryers. These systems can reliably process and preserve crops independent of the grid with on-demand energy. They offer clean combustion and produce high-quality output crops. Some of the crops these units can process include cocoa, grain, mango, banana, papaya, tomato, and many, many more. The third element to the VIP solution is the dryer and generator housing. On the left is a simplified concept site plan for the drying hub. This particular layout has been optimized for fruit and vegetable drying. These are 65 square meter facilities, which include housing for the generator separately from the drying area to eliminate contamination from any combustion of firewood or other biomass. It also includes space for 2 speedy dryers, a rain catchment and water storage system, crop selection, crop prep, and storage areas, as well as showers for workers to use prior to entering the facility. We found that these facilities can be constructed with locally available materials in Kenya. We've also included the site plan layout and an example of an actual built site. We found these plan templates help to achieve the optimal output of the processing technology, making operations very efficient. We've also included here a short video clip of what a full community drying facility in action looks like using the VIP speedy dryer solution. You'll notice for the cabinet style dryers pictured here, the fruit is being sliced uniformly at about 8 millimeters and placed onto trays which get loaded into the dryers. Each dryer uses a 12-inch axial flow fan to evenly distribute high velocity air at controllable temperatures horizontally across the trays. This results in a consistent quality product. You can also monitor the internal temperature of the drying chamber and ensure that lethality is achieved in eliminating any pathogens. You can also ensure lethality to any fruit fly larvae, which can be a nuisance and contributing factor to post-harvest loss for crops in some regions. The VIP processing model can increase the participation of business-oriented bean dryers. It can also provide flexibility to diversify beyond cocoa with the drying technology. Furthermore, this technology replaces current drying practices involving the risk of direct exposure or indirect exposure, resulting in smoke taint and reducing the quality and price obtained at market. We also believe the on-demand and grid-independent features of the VIP 1040 offer value in meeting the goals of this challenge. With that, I'd like to thank you for letting me speak today. And that's our contact info. Feel free to reach out for more information, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Cody, so much for sharing more about the VIP solution and for giving much more on the context of how it's actually been deployed through your trials in Kenya to date. And welcome other folks who are throwing questions through the Q&A if you have to send our way. But I'm really interested, Cody, obviously really appreciate that you've given a lot of approach, even though I haven't deployed in cocoa yet, but how you might approach it differently for Papua New Guinea. And I know one thing that we've probably already brought up and spoken about is about financial viability and cost, and just not asking for commitment or a thesis, but just thinking about from your perspective, do you have any perspective on how, without reducing scale, significantly of the solution, you might actually support a lower cost or a more financially viable solution in the context of PNG, where logistical costs and others are very high?
Yeah, so the main thing for me to focus on would be what is the moisture content? How quickly can we dry these beans? I would like to see the processing capacity get higher. You don't necessarily need to include the dryer hub housing. I would need to see what you have to run some analysis on, what the benefits are to that. We were able to construct that site there for 10,000 US in Kenya. Logistical and everything in PNG contextually might increase some of these costs. The speedy dryers we were selling at 8,000, and then the generation unit we were at 25,000. And it's that without increasing scale of manufacturing on our side, it's difficult to reduce those prices. But I'd be very curious to see what we could get in terms of capacity. Looking at just quickly glancing at some of the combo dryers and hearing what capacity they do, leads me to believe that we could probably crank out a good amount of tonnage through this. So I would have to look at the numbers, but maybe deploying, they ship ready from India, so then it's just logistics would be moving from port of entry to the site, and that I'm not experienced in that geography to know what that involves.
That's great, Cody. I think just thinking through some of the actual questions that you'd be asking in the process of thinking about how you actually consider financial viability differently is really helpful in that context. So thanks, Cody, for your presentation and for your reflections. I think that's great. And yeah, anybody that has other questions for Cody, feel free to send them through the Q&A. I'm sure he'll be paying attention to that, or otherwise to reach out directly as he's highlighted here. I think we'll move next to Ian Monroe of Rise Energy. Ian, do you want to take the baton?
Yeah, thank you very much. Justin, can you just confirm you can see the screen?
All good.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Justin and Beanstalk and Graft for having me today. I am going to talk about the energy and agricultural nexus and the interlinkage between the two, and how that can positively impact not just a sector but also a community as well. So Rise Energy, who are we? Well, first and foremost, we're a wind technology manufacturer. So we manufacture small wind turbines. We have over 4,000 installs across the world, and we are a manufacturer from 3 kilowatts up to 60 kilowatts. So in the low to medium-sized wind turbines sector. What makes us unique is our diversity in that portfolio. So multiple turbines for multiple applications, from small scale farmers to large industrial or community driven models. And what we do with our turbines is we also complement them with PV battery storage to create our hybrid systems. So increasing resilience, increasing reliability for communities and for industrial sectors. We also have a team that services globally and installs globally. We've installed over 4,000 systems across all 7 continents. So no one country is sort of too far for us. Where we look to make an impact is across these 3 pillars. So economic, it has to be financially and economically viable for our end user. It has to enable resilient energy, so not just one single source really for resilient and reliable energy. We look to have wind, solar, and energy storage to complement each other to increase reliability, but also to lower the cost of the decentralized renewable energy solutions, which is critical when you do not have current energy access, and the environmental benefits as well. So decarbonizing, where we are currently there's unsustainable options like we've spoken about today, where there may be health or environmental impacts. We look to put clean energy in to mitigate against that. This is just a very small selection of some of our installs, but across a wide range of sectors as well. Now, in terms of the agri sector specifically, we have over a quarter of our installs have been in the agri sector alone. So our G11 and our E5 wind turbines, coupled with solar, have been deployed across the globe, displacing diesel and increasing reliability to energy access, and bringing in new connections to areas that don't currently have electricity. And as Justin mentioned, the rural access to reliable energy in the productive use sector in PNG is very limited. So currently only 13% roughly of PNG's population. And so where we see there being a positive impact in hybrid resilient renewable energy systems is that overall step up in bringing more people onto a distributed grid, a decentralized grid, and using like a cooperative energy sort of ownership solution where ultimately the community or the local area owns that community scale grid. Just a quick overview on what we see as hybridization and why hybrid renewables. We see that rationale really to enable renewable energy to be the primary source of energy, and to keep diesel costs and heavy fuel oil costs at a minimum. So by enabling wind and solar together and combined with energy storage, you can maximize and harvest the maximum energy output from the natural resources. And so that gives farmers control of their energy supply, and it gives the community a more resilient energy supply across the whole sort of community scale distributed grid that we were referring to earlier as well. One of the case studies that we have very specifically in this sector was in Ghana. Whilst it has some of the highest energy access rates in sub-Saharan Africa, in remote and rural environments, it's actually extremely low. The remoteness and ruralness of these locations means that the diesel cost is very high, and there's a lack of infrastructure in last mile communities. And so we worked with a number of agencies to deliver a distributed renewable system which aided the agricultural output of the community and provided that cooperative and community scale grid at the same time. So whilst it served the agricultural purposes, of the community. It also served the wider community as well in terms of healthcare facilities, schools, and local housing as well. How we did that was we created that microgrid hybrid with the decentralized renewable energy system. There's some specifics there. So we put 2 of our E5 wind turbines in, a small solar array, and some battery storage as well. And that system, as I said, was able to supply water pumping irrigation systems, the agricultural electrical requirements, and around 500 people gained new access that they currently did not have. In terms of CO2 emissions as well, we were able to reduce 85 metric tons of CO2 equivalent per year if the fossil fuels were utilized. So thank you very much, Justin and the team, and I'm happy to take questions on how we can use decentralized and distributed renewables at a community scale to increase the benefit as a whole.
Thanks, Ian. I think that's really great to hear about some of the deployments that you've been doing, the range of solutions and the approach that RISE takes. I think especially there might be some individuals from USAID's PEP program, the Partnership for Electrification in the Pacific, that they're much more focused on the household energy space. I think there's a great demonstration of kind of the opportunity for microgrids and other similar solutions to provide kind of mixed energy opportunity. And
yeah, from really, our side, we see it as being very complementary to as the economy grows from the distributed renewables, it creates a knock-on and positive impact on the other sectors as well. And obviously, if you have grid or microgrids, it makes the drying challenge and the wood fire alternatives an easier challenge to tackle as well.
Right. No, that's a great reflection, Ian. And one question that I had, I know you spotlighted that you said a quarter of your installs have been focused on the agricultural industry and applications, and really eager to hear how have you, in learning through that, how have you started to approach those types of projects differently, if you do, from other sectors, and what are some of the unique kind of challenges and constraints that you see for developing solutions in that space?
Yeah, for sure. I think the agri sector is so varied with the subsectors. You've got from livestock to wind to water to irrigation, that they all have different challenges at a lower level, but at a higher level, nearly all challenges are about resilience, and that's kind of where we've seen some of our key USPs. So being able to provide a near continuous supply of renewables and modeling that out and balancing that between wind, solar, and energy storage is really how we've seen that happening. And the positive impacts that you can see from a hybrid approach, not just one single solution will solve the energy challenges of a farm or of a community or of a country. So that's really where we see the positive impacts being made and the learnings. So understanding the requirements of that individual or that customer.
Thanks a lot, Ian. And I'm sure you'll be sticking around and answer some questions as well. I think there's already more coming through the chat for you. So I'll leave you to that. Sure, and please do contact Ian to learn more about RISE, and looking forward to learning more. Willington, why don't I throw to you to hear more about what Wuppertal Institute has been up to?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you for the invitation. So I will look in. You see my screen, isn't it? Just sure.
All good.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you. I am thanks for this opportunity to share and discuss some of our observations about how decentralized renewable energy solutions can contribute in strengthening the livelihoods of rural populations. So my presentation will be a bit another character, because I'm a researcher from Wuppertal Institute, and we see ourselves as a leading international think tank conducting sustainability research, focus on impact, on practical application, on how to move towards sustainable development. So that's more, I will bring this innovation research perspective from the sociology perspective on innovation. And the Institute, a little bit more on our Institute. The Institute research covers several fields of, for example, the transformation of energy and industry systems, the crafting of the international climate regime, or how to move towards circular economy structures, etc. So, and one of the fields that we are covering, or my unit, my small unit is covering, is the challenge of energy, universal access to energy, to clean energy. And within this small niche of our institute, I would like to present some observations that come from one long-term project, which we call an initiative, which is the Visions of Sustainability Initiative, that has as a mission to catalyze system transformations for strengthening the livelihoods of rural and peri-urban population in the global south. And one of the components, let me say, of that initiative has been the support of local practitioners in developing and testing approaches for bringing local energy transformations at a very local level. So in different kind of contexts, also different kind of application, and all our portfolio, let me say, of projects have had different types of technologies, etc. So, and I will only touch on two projects that are quite related with your challenge. And the first project is transdisciplinary research, so a collaborative research that we did for analyzing experience of some farmers associations, or some, let me say, grassroots organizations in this country that have been advancing agroecological transformation of their members, since some of them since decades. And they have some success in terms of their impact within their own organization, but a little, but not too much impact, let me say, beyond those limits of the organization. So that was a kind of our aim, our epistemic aim for this exchange, or also for this research. And those organizations has been working with different types of grassroots innovations, what we call it. Some of them on energy, like tubular biodigesters, or the use of solar PV for irrigation or for water supply, also solar dryers and rainwater harvesting that combined with PV. But what we found very interesting during this research is that this association, the success of these associations, or not only the associations but other actors of in this space, the success in promoting such innovation was strongly related with the fact that those single innovations were tools integrated into a set of other practices or other types of innovation. So it's not only about technical innovation, but there are the agroecology practices that they have been also advancing. And very critical in our analysis, together with all the stakeholders that we get together, particularly those what we we will call organizational and financial practices or innovations were recognized as very central in order to ignite, to start and accompany the families in their transformation processes, which are rather long and iterative and very not very straightforward processes of transformation, and each family is different also, the challenges. So and therefore those kinds of innovations or practices, like these organizations building their own staff of technical advisors among the families, or creating or advancing tools and methodologies for adapted to the training and processes of accompanying the families. Some of these organizations also are operating revolving funds, some of them already for more than 20 years, that gives them a kind of autonomy and possibility also to accompany the whole process, and also give the possibility to the families to start making changes along the whole transformation pathway. And other organizational, very important organizational innovations are, some of them have already started to create some own trademarks, particularly in the coffee. And some of them are also started to build some kind of direct commercialization channels within the country. So it's a kind of very interesting combination and integration of all these or different types of tools or innovation that bring to that success within this association. That was, let me say, the conclusion of that, one of the main conclusions of that transdisciplinary research that we did. Now let me go to one other small project that we supported, which is more related with your challenge. This one was about improving the production of cocoa or testing some ideas of how to improve the livelihoods of the families that are working in cocoa within their systems. It's not that they only make that. And as you see, the objectives of the project were a little bit quite ambitious. Actually, it was not only about productivity, but also to enhance resilience and climate change, etc. This project was coordinated by our partner Green Empowerment and implemented in cooperation with some local organizations also in Ecuador. Let me also very shortly on some of the results. So the project included, of course, some energy solutions, and the two main solutions were the construction of solar dryers, with kind of modified design from things that are more or less very used in these regions, and the operation of tubular biodigesters. But in order to bring this ambitious idea of, okay, how to impact really the different dimensions of the livelihoods of the people, the project considered also other activities which were also central to the implementation, like activities in improving the management practices of the plantation. Also the post-harvest treatment, so making kind of trainings and exchange among the farmers, how to include best practices in post-harvest treatment of the beans. And also one topic that was also identified during the project was the importance of having nurseries and the establishment of nurseries locally, so that they have this possibility to renew the genetic stock of their cocoa plantations. A little bit of reflections on the impacts of this pilot project. So we could see the impacts and the benefits. Let me say that the technical feasibility and the technical effectivity of many of these innovations in improving, for example, the quality of dry cocoa, reducing the burden of workload for drying, because those families that don't have that kind of solar dryers needs to be made that in a very primitive way, let me say in that way, which is quite a lot of workload. And the fertilizer value of the biodigesters were effluent was also very high evaluated by the participants and also the neighbors. And we saw in our ex-post survey, our follow-up phase, that there were a lot of interest in installing this kind of technology. However, when you take a look more on detail on this livelihood perspective, the gains are a little bit difficult to see or are not so significant. For example, the economic gains were jeopardized by the international price fall, which was in 2016, and also the very low bargaining power of these farmers, which in these regions are not really well organized, or it's not a kind of solid organization like we have seen now with the PNG Corporation. And therefore, there were also low incentive for adopting several important best practices, for example, in the cultivation management, but there are a little bit more labor intensive. And also we saw that a good level of adoption and use of the innovation, but we know from other experience that without having local capacities for the technical and financial support continues, the sustainability of the replication is rather uncertain. And for example, some communitarian models for using dryers, a little bit bigger dryers, were not working fully in that way. So at the end, it was more like single families working with the dryers. A little bit of bringing out kind of general lessons, what we learned, or part of what we learned from these projects and other projects which are related with family farming. First is that the contribution of energy solutions to strengthening livelihood is not a straightforward thing. So it's a kind of, you know, the system there is not an easy system. It's the causal chain. I will not say that we have a model exactly on how that works, but it's just to bring that, to highlight that these are not straightforward links. We understood that integrating or articulating different types of inputs is actually very important in order to create impact. So it's not only it's important to have these other non-energy inputs, as I call it here, so that you have a higher likelihood that at least that one or more of these, let me say, capitals of the livelihoods, of whether human, social, natural, financial, physical capitals, become a kind of improvement or an impact. You can see an impact there. So you have to take into consideration also those non-energy aspects. And this will be the last one. We see that a strong, sorry, this is a kind of mixing German and English. So a strong organizational structures can be very crucial in moving forward this transformational process, because first, those organizations act as local store of transformational resources, let me say, you know, that are accessible for the actors locally, like technical expertise, finance, the motivation, the bargaining power, etc. And in this way, there are more certainty that families can be accompanied in a more continuous and long-term way in the transformation process, which is a long-term dynamic. So that's all from my perspective, and many thanks for this invitation. I'm also learning a lot, and if you want to have more information, our knowledge projects are also online available. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Ortiz. Wellington, it's great to hear more about the integrated program that the Wuppertal Institute has been driving through visions of sustainability. And I think it's great to actually full circle kind of point from starting the discussion with and we're getting back there now. But starting the discussion with Jens and the membership-driven approach that ARE is taking, and with Brad speaking through kind of the market systems change, hopefully underway and in motion in Papua New Guinea. And I think it was really prescient that you talked about the price fall as wiping in any perceived economic benefit of a dryer. And I think that's in a sense part of what I think we're trying to talk through in terms of the implications of drying on hopefully market price and a more integrated program of support that I think Brad spoke to, that PNGAC is undertaking, but also that market development facility is undertaking. So I have lots of questions for you, and I'm sure others do too, Wellington. So I encourage others to put through the chat and to follow up with Wellington and the team of Wisians after. In the interest of time, I think we're going to move to the panel, but just want to say one final thank you to Cody at Village Industrial Power, at Ian at Rise Energy, and Wellington Oritz from Wuppertal Institute for sharing your solutions and your learnings throughout this process. So thanks very much. And with that, I'm eager to bring back Jens and Brad for just 15 minutes to talk a little bit, to reflect a little bit more on the discussion that we've already had, and to hear a little bit from you both. So thanks, Jens and Brad, so much for being part of this, for Jens for co-convening and running this event and sharing more about your membership, and Brad, of course, for your partnership in development of these challenges and hopefully in trialing and bringing solutions to Papua New Guinea. Maybe Brad, I might just start with you, and really eager to hear from you. Maybe we've heard a lot about, from the innovators' perspective, about what their own solutions and experiences with rural energy solutions. Would love to hear just a bit from you and your own reflection as you've been going down this path. What have you tried before, and what have you learned in that time in deploying rural energy solutions space?
Well, thanks, Justin. The dryers that have sort of mainly out in the marketplace are these sort of solar dryers with the kiln pipes, and so that's been the standard for a long time. We've tried a couple of different things. We tried a small domestic biodigester, but it wasn't really big enough, and we couldn't generate the sustained heat, and we didn't have enough capex to really try and scale it up. And there was also a bit of issue trying to find stock, manure and stuff like that to put into it. We quite liked the idea of the biodigester because of the opportunity to develop a kind of another alternative industry in livestock, and also with the organic fertilizer. The other one we tried was recommended to us by an engineering company there who was heating for balsa, and so we were running hot water pipes underneath some aluminium trays, but again, we struggled. We had to heat the water with fire. We did try some other ways of heating, but we couldn't get the heat necessary to dry the beans. And it might have been because we were using an existing facility which was very deep, and we were losing a lot of heat. But it didn't quite work. And so we've tried a few things, but without really the engineering skill or the experience, we're just a bit ad hoc, really. And so I mean, it's great listening to all these new kind of ideas, because that's what we need. I think we need new thinking, new ideas, and that's what we're looking for.
Thanks, Brad, for sharing more about your experience and some of the many kind of approaches that you've tried in the context of the PNG supply chain so far. And yeah, having had a bit of a window into some of what Cody and Ian and Billington have been deploying in other spaces. Really eager to hear some of your thoughts, Brad, on what do you think will be some of the success factors and the challenges for these innovators as they're really interacting with the Papua New Guinea agri value chain for the first time?
Yeah, well, obviously the issue of having no electricity is probably one of the main challenges. These places are very remote and hard to get to, so there's quite a logistics issue in getting around. So, and also, it's not like you can just put one big system in and that will service everybody. You've got to have kind of this system that could service community based, but so they're not around individuals, but they're kind of like 200 or 300, maybe 500 people, a system that could service that. So that comes down to like how much capex can we spend on one system to make it viable, because there's not a lot of affordability at farm level. So we have to make sure that whatever we put in is commercially sustainable. Like the current systems that we have now can only really be distributed through a grant. No cooperatives or farmers can afford them. So we have to kind of get a model where we can scale it out nationally. So the viability of it is really important. And then what we put there needs to be quite easy to maintain, because there's not a lot of technical skills around, looking after a system that's highly technical. So the system has to be quite simple. The way we get the heat source, I mean, I personally would like to make sure we could do away with having to burn anything, so that we don't have any smoke, just to remove any perception. So, I mean, in terms of like success factors, we're looking for a central post-harvest production system. As I said, maybe 200 to 500 kind of farmers, and we want consistent quality dry beans. We want to be able to give the market the same thing every single time, and we want to be able to provide them with some sort of verification of what it's getting. So we'd like to be able to track the data along, when beans go into a fermenting box, what's their temperature, when do they come out, and the Cochrane board's got all these kind of standards. So if we can have a way of also measuring those standards as we go through the process, basically we don't want smoke in the system, and it has to be commercially viable, scalable, and easy to maintain. I guess that's probably the main things from my point of view.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Brad, for I think taking again kind of the system level perspective to that, and sounds like interesting and big road ahead.
Well, yeah, I liked what I saw with these guys who just presented today. Some really good things. there's some that are smaller, and the largest kind of one, you could see how that could integrate into the broader electricity needs of communities, and how do you kind of link the two to get what we need done, and also look at how that could help communities generally access electricity. So this process is sort of bringing out some nice innovations.
Yeah, great, and thanks again to those of you that were able to share a little bit more about what you're doing in that space today.
Okay.
Jens, I'm gonna come back to you for the last few minutes here, and maybe to come back down to that individual innovator level. You have a membership of over 200, and ranging from large scale multinationals to SMEs and startup solution providers, and you've seen the publications you pointed to shown decentralized energy solutions move and take off and trial all around the world. And what advice would you give to innovators, like potentially the applicants of the GRAFT program, who are approaching new global markets to make commercial relationships and solutions in new spaces last?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So first of all, one of the advice I would give is one company cannot do anything, especially if you're an SME. Focus on your core business and then do partnerships for the rest. So in terms of the lasting partnerships, I guess a model that we've seen work, and actually also an approach ARE itself has in our more public partnerships, is start small, start with something concrete, and then if that particular case of a partnership or that particular test has worked, then scale it up. And that's kind of how we usually build our partnerships. We've seen a lot of partnerships between members where investors invest in mini-grid developers projects, for example. A good example would be recently there was a commercial investment of cross-boundary energy access, who, by the way, invest in these type of CNI projects as well. And they invested in the mini-grid portfolio of energy in Nigeria. There was also a multi-member partnership, a little bit along the same lines, project finance for mini-grids with Electrify and Oiko Credit and a few others. So yeah, my main advice would be, maybe use the ARE network, first of all, to find partners. We have a job platform, an off-grid matchmaking platform. We also have a job platform, but the matchmaking platform is more relevant for the partnerships. And on that, you can find the type of partners you're looking for. So you can filter it per type of company, if you're looking for investors, EPCs, or technology providers, etc. And then once you've defined companies you're interested in, you can contact us. We're happy to put you in touch with our members. Start small and then build on it from there. And we have a lot of, lastly, we have a lot of case studies of partnerships between our members as well on our website that you can perhaps draw inspiration from.
Thanks, Jens. I think yes, another call out to access some of the programs and partnership that ARE is leading and also a party to. And I understand that we're coming to the book end of our session, so feel free to keep this last one short, Jens, but good to end where we started with you. And we'll just ask you one final question: is why you might encourage innovators in your network to consider applying for the GRAFT program?
Absolutely. Of course, we'd encourage that. I think the key value proposition you bring us, of course, to scale commercial partnerships in this space, especially in the Pacific, if I understand correctly. There's also a market intelligence and advisory dimension to it. So basically strengthening the service offering that a company can do, and then relationship building. So actually it's a little bit some of the same things we offer, just more on the the agricultural side. But I think out of what I've heard today and what I've read, I think relationship building, partnerships, market intelligence, advisory, and of course also visibility. Those would be some of the highlights of why you should work with GRAFT.
Thanks, Jens. Try to get everybody out of here in time for their next meeting. Mine, I won't have one because it's 12:30 a.m. here in Melbourne. But thanks everybody who is able to take time for this conversation today and to stay with us through the end. Thanks very much to Jens and the team at ARE, Ling, who I think I spoke to first, that help us pull together this event and share perspectives here and what ARE can do. Thanks to Brad for sharing much more on the challenges within the PNG cocoa sector and the ambition behind, more importantly, and more about PNG Agriculture Company. And thanks very much, Willington, Ian, and Cody for sharing much more about the impactful and challenge-oriented approaches that your organizations are taking. Willington, the knowledge that you're sharing and how others can make drive more systemic change in this space. So thanks everybody, and please apply now. We're innovators for the GRAFT Challenge program. We're accepting applications through January 27th. You can check out our website, graftchallenge.com, and please do reach out directly to me or our partners at Market Development Facility. Our contacts are there on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you to you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thanks, Justin. Cheers.